You know, if your government is so interested in keeping you safe, why are they exposing you and your personal information, your healthcare records, your financial data, your identity? Why are they exposing you to theft and being robbed by foreign governments, criminals, terrorists? Well, the answer is pretty simple. They're really not interested in your safety. That's just the excuse they tell you. This article out in the National Review. State exchanges are vulnerable to Wi-Fi theft. The other article that really bears listening to is the public safety disaster of Obamacare that's going to force thousands of volunteer fire departments to close. The Affordable Care Act forces companies with more than 50 workers to buy them all health insurance or pay hefty fines. The IRS says volunteer firefighters are employees, even though the Department of Labor says they're volunteers. They're not paid. How can they be an employee? In order to be an employee, you have to be compensated. Volunteer firefighters are not compensated. There's more than 1 million fire departments in the United States, and 87% of them are staffed entirely or mostly by volunteers. Now, there's a couple of people in Congress who have raised the issue, but Obama and the entire HHS are ignoring their concerns, and they haven't yet carved out a firefighting exception. But damn it, if the unions were calling for it, boy, they'd be all over that. If one of his fundraisers who kicked in $500,000 called for it, boy, there'd be a waiver written so fast the paper would be on fire. But no, if this is about keeping America safe, you're going to force thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of volunteer firefighters to lose, or volunteer fire departments to shut down. That's keeping America safe, though, ain't it? Yeah, that's a real great focal point. That's the goal you're trying to achieve. You know, those people who out there say President Obama is doing a bad job, they're wrong. The truth is that this sycophantic dictator is doing a phenomenal job, but only from his perspective and the perspective of those people who are looking to, these are the elitists, the statists, who want to own you. They want to own you. You are livestock to be culled and sheared and chopped up and fed to them. You're collateral damage, and you're of no consequence. And if you've outlived your usefulness, hey, too bad. If that's the country that you really, truly want to live in, I don't understand it. Why don't you just go to prison? Go commit a crime and go to prison. Because in prison, they'll take good care of you. They'll feed you 3 squares a day. You'll get a cot to sleep in. All your bills will be paid. You won't have any electric bill. You won't have to worry about gasoline. You won't have to worry about a natural gas bill. You won't have to worry about how you're going to pay for insurance. Healthcare's free. It's part of the package. You know, you're a little bit limited in where you can go. I mean, honestly, if that's what you're looking for, is to be so taken care of that you're like a babe in the womb. If that's your idea of a good life, that's open to you. Go rob a bank or commit a burglary or armed robbery or something, and then just stand there and wait for the police to come. There are countless stories of people who have actually committed a crime because they needed medical care and they couldn't get it outside. They're homeless or whatever, so they just go commit a crime knowing that once they get to prison, their medical problem will be taken care of. Their cancer will be treated or whatever. They'll get their bypass surgery, whatever the heck it is. I mean, you can join the ranks. We have 25% of the planet's inmate population. We're only 5% of the total population on the planet, but we have 25% of all the inmates. There's plenty of room for you. Don't worry about it. You won't have to worry about your house burning down because, let's face it, there's not going to be any volunteer fire departments after a little while. You don't even have to pay for health care. It comes free. They'll take good care of you. The truth is, you already live like that. You just don't know it yet. You may not get the freebies, the free food and the free cot, but you're enslaved. You're enslaved to debt. You're enslaved to working so hard just to make ends meet that you don't have the time to say, wow, what the heck is going on around me? You're enslaved by a media that constantly pumps propaganda into your ears and into your eyes and into your soul and your spirit. You spend your time playing video games. What is that accomplishing? You spend your time counting football scores and writing down the name of this guy and that guy, what his batting average was. I got to memorize that. Man, I got to spend hours on my fantasy football team. But you can't name the Vice President of the United States. You can't name a single founder or come up with one legitimate quote from one founder. You've never read your Constitution, not since you were in the 6th grade. And now they're not even teaching it in the 6th grade. They're giving you a paraphrased version of it because of Common Core. Your kids aren't learning what you learned. When was the last time you read the Federalist Papers? When was the last time you read a book? Any book. Science fiction novel. I don't care. Why? Because it rewires your brain in a proper way to think critically and clearly. That's why. Because it gives you language skills that you don't possess right now because you haven't read one in 25 years. Because it teaches you how to spell, because you see the word so many times that it becomes commonplace. And the next time you're trying to figure out how to spell spouse, oh, it's right there in the front of your forehead, and your mental eye sees it. Because it teaches you geography, and because it teaches you science, and it teaches you ways of interaction, and it teaches you language skills. And it teaches you facts and figures and the concepts. It allows you to take complex issues and break it down so that you can explain it to those who are not quite so gifted. But you're not interested in truth. And you're not interested in gut-wrenching reality. You'd rather pretend in this little escapist world that you want to just race around in, and man, it doesn't really matter as long as, I got my home to come home to. I'm just worn out at the end of the day. I got a 6-pack in the fridge. I got a ball game I can watch. Some sitcom. Get on the internet, play a few games. Maybe read a magazine about what the stars in Hollywood are doing. And the tornado is moving in on us. What you don't realize is that your inability, your refusal to stand up. We're all tied to it. Every one of us is tied to your action or inaction. You personally are going to be responsible for the success or the failure of this nation. You, individually, singularly, you. And whatever that outcome is, you're saddling us with it or benefiting us with it. Just you. Not your wife, not your husband, not your children, not your father. Just you. Your action, just yours. When does the tide turn? At what point have you moved enough that the snowball begins to grow and roll? What constitutes outrage for you? Where does it stop? Is it when you say, well, I get it, but these guys are just too powerful. I got to pay this bill and I got to take that insurance. And I know they're spying on me and I really don't like it. So, but instead of fighting it, instead of rising up and demanding that they stop, I think what I'll do is I'll just change the way I talk to my friends and my family. Man, I hate when I go to the motor vehicle department and they want to take my facial recognition picture and they're going to make me look in this machine so that they can put a pattern on my eye. You know, everywhere I go, they want me to fill out a form and sign. And at the bottom, it always says the same thing. You're signing this subject to perjury, and you're subject to penalty of law for a lie. You're signing your rights away every day. Boy, I hate how they spend my money. They go out there and they spend my money on all this stupid stuff and leave me to pay for it. When during during this list that grows by the moment, are you going to say enough is enough? Or aren't you? Are you just going to capitulate and say, I let it go so long, now it's too big and I can't do anything? Is that where this goes? You know, the problem is that I'm too busy. I don't have any money. I can't do that. I can't take that time off of work to go over there. I can't drive all the way up to go protest at the Capitol building. I can't go to Washington and sit there and camp out in Washington and storm the castle with you because I've got to go to work. Could lose my truck. They'll take my house. I'm afraid. They'll pick me up with that facial recognition camera they're scanning the crowds with. Well, the fact is, folks, they've got your facial recognition picture to do the match. How do you think they got it in the first place? You think that house is worth something to you now? If we had to run into some kind of a fiscal collapse because we're at $17 trillion in debt and physical hard cash that we owe not only to the Federal Reserve but to China, and we're not talking about the $200 trillion that nobody wants to talk about on the backside of that, You think you're going to be able to keep your home? You think that truck is going to go somewhere when gas is $26 a gallon? You think that truck is going to go somewhere when that gas is $8 a gallon? You think it's even going to get you down to the store where bread is going up so fast that they change the price from the time you walk in the store to the time you get up to the counter to pay for it? It's a false dream. And then when you really go to protest, then when you say, hey, I don't have a choice, I've got to do something. I got no job. They took my house. My family and I are sleeping in the truck, and the only reason they haven't taken that is because they can't figure out where we are. Then what are you going to do? Now I got to go to Washington and protest. But now you can't because you got no food and you got no money to get there, and you can't even travel because the gas is $8 or $12 or $15 a gallon. And the roving bands of thugs that are made up of both the society's worst and the rest of the thugs in government, they'll never let you get there. If you think this is far off the mark, if you think I'm wearing a tinfoil hat 2 inches thick, you go right on thinking that. But I'm going to tell you something. When that price comes up and it has to be paid, there ain't going to be enough grief, enough remorse in the universe to make you feel better. When your kids are sitting there saying, but Mommy, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days, Mommy. And your son says, Daddy, I'm thirsty. I'm cold. I want to go home. What are you going to say? I'm sorry. Because I didn't have the courage of my convictions and the wisdom to see the obvious handwriting on the wall. They're entrusting their future, their life to you. And you're not doing a very good job protecting them. When your wife is looking at you and saying, what should we do? What are we going to do? What are you going to do? Say, well, we should have done something a couple of years ago when we saw this coming. Think that's going to put food in your belly? We've slipped so far down, and we've adopted the slave mentality and the thinking that our dependency on government will somehow, some way pay off. You trust them that much that they're not incompetent enough to screw it up? Let's just suggest for a moment that it's not malicious. It's just sheer rank incompetence. If it's so incompetent, why would you put your family's future, your future, in their hands? Willingly, knowingly. even if you don't believe that it's some nefarious, ulterior, evil plan. Okay. But why would you trust these people who you see routinely screw things up, even with the best of intentions, with your life? Who would do that? And it's not just your life. It's our lives. It's our nation. It's our children. It's our futures. It's not just you. I know it's easy to sit there and be concerned and say, well, I got to take care of number one. Well, I get that. But if you think you can go live out there as an island unto yourself, you're a fool. Go ahead and try it. Get yourself a pocket knife, go out into the woods and try to live there in the primitive lifestyle and see how far you get. Take your whole family with you and see how far all of you get. Take 50 people in a community and their families, and now you might have something. Because somebody's got the skill to figure out how to make some rope, and the other one's got some skill to figure out how to make some clothing. You can't live isolated. And yet you're making issues and decisions on issues in an isolated format. It's all about me. That's why we form societies. Because nobody can go it alone. And we all benefit from the collective input of everybody. But when society gets to the point where it's now no longer benefiting us, but is using us as a food source, something's gone horribly wrong. The truth is, you all know it's happening. Some of you, obviously, right in front, right up front, you know it, you talk about it on a routine basis, you're concerned about it, you try to take action. How many of you listening to this right now only admit it to yourselves late at night in the back of your mind? And then you turn on the television or some music so that you don't have to think about it too long. You want distraction. You seek it because it helps you to ignore the reality of what you know is right around the corner. Even if you don't believe economic collapse is right around the block. Even if you don't believe that the stuff that's going on around you, the surveillance and the abuse and the tactics that are being used against you are detrimental to you. Your alarm bells are going off right here. And you know something's wrong. Desperately wrong. Not just an inkling that, hey, maybe we're a little lost here. You're standing there in full-fledged knowledge. It's like stopping in the woods and saying, okay, it's time I acknowledge I am lost. I don't know where I am. I don't recognize anything around me. I don't know how I got here, and I don't know how to get back. You can't just keep marching off into infinity. You got to do something. Sit, think, make a plan, take some action. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/America's Voice Now, youtube.com/America's Voice Now, Spreaker.com/user/America's /America's Voice Now. Please like our Spreaker page so we can get onto iHeartRadio. It will help broaden our scope and our expansion. If you can support us in any way, you can contact me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. I pay for everything that we do out of my pocket, folks. I could really use some help. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.